My name is Elvis, and this is Dave.
Hello.
And we're going to make a beer today.
The name of this beer is Benign Bruiser Dunkel.
And it can be found, the recipe can be found in the common book of the Home Brewer's Companion. It's a very popular book on page 346.
That's it. Beer brewing process is we're going to boil 2 gallons of, bring 2 gallons of water to a boil, and then we're going to add some things to that after it's boiling. So we're going to get the water boiling right now.
That's 1 gallon of some very fresh water. We don't advise using tap water because it has too many minerals and factors in it that could ruin your beer. Remember, this water is from H2O to go. Nice place to get water. Could have got it outside of Lucky's. Maybe inside a Safeway. I don't know. Bottled water is what you want to get.
Do we need to worry about the water that's going to boil off?
We'll take that into account when we add it to our. We're making a concentrated wort, which is basically instead of a 5-gallon wort, we're going to make a 2-gallon wort and add it to some more water. You filming? Okay, what I'm doing here is the rest of the water that we're about to use for the beer is once the wort is all done, what we have to do is we have to cool it down to temperature about 65, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So what I'm going to do, what I'm doing here is I created an ice bath to cool this water, so when I add the wort to it, it'll cool it down so I can pitch the yeast. But that'll come later and you don't have to worry about that now. Ice. You're going to fuck with me with that, huh? Scotch is a good drink to make. One day hope I soon. I'm talking backwards now. Look at that.
Okay.
How are we going to say this?
Hold on.
Stop.
Water. Now that our 2 gallons of bottled water are boiling, we're going to add our malt extract. It's a dark malt extract. And then 1 ounce of, let's see here. This is a German Herzbrucker Hallertauer hops. So, cut it. First the hops. And now the malt extract syrup. It's very, very thick, sort of like a sorghum. It's actually quite tasty by itself, but it's very, very rich.
You might want to use a spoon or something.
This itself, this right here, the extract, this is 6.5 pounds of dark malt extract.
You're going to get as much as possible because this beer is relying on malt.
And once we have this in, we're going to bring it back to a boil and let that boil for 45 minutes.
Notice the texture. It's like molasses. How you want to do it? Yes, this is what beer looks like. As you can see, we had a few boilovers. It's natural, don't worry about it.
Alright, we have been boiling our wort, which was the 6.5 pounds of malt extract and
an ounce of hops.
Thank you, Elvis.
And our 2 gallons of water.
That's been going for 45 minutes. Now we add some more hops, this time a 1/4 ounce. This one's for flavor. And a 1/4 teaspoon of Irish moss, little tiny things, This is also for flavor. And now we'll let that boil for another 20 minutes.
Is we have the yeast packets now. What we're going to do is we're going to activate the yeast. It's not always necessary to activate yeast, but this requires 15 minutes, or for the yeast to sit in some warm water for about 15 minutes. It varies depending on what kind of beer you have, what kind of yeast that you use, and all that stuff. So, but for this yeast that we're using right now, we're using Amsterdam lager yeast, and it says for best results use dissolve in a 105-degree Fahrenheit cup of water for about 15 minutes, and that's what we're going to do. And since it's so close, 20 minutes, we're just going to do that for now. That's what we're doing right now. We're going to heat up this little thing of water and put it in there and let it dissolve for 15 minutes. That's it for now, and we'll see you when we're ready to cool the wort. Okay. Alright, we have about 10 more minutes left. What we want to do now is, since the beer is boiling, it's a hot temperature, that means basically no bacteria is in there. There may be bacteria on this. What we're going to do is sterilize this. This is going to basically filter out all the hops and everything in there. So we're going to put this in here for the remainder of the 15 minutes that it's boiling, so it kills all the bacteria and everything. You know, you kill 98% of your bacteria at about 180 degrees. So, and you boil at about, what, 212?
Alright.
So, that's what we're going to do the next 15 minutes, is leave this in there so it boils and kills all the bacteria. And so when we siphon it, we don't want to leave this on the ground, so when we siphon it, it'll be all nice and clean. And so we'll basically see you in about 15 minutes. Right now our culture, though, as you can see, is forming nicely. It's about 105 degrees, 102 degrees, and it's coming along nicely. It may look different if you do it. Culture, yeast acts differently in every environment, so. And we used, again, distilled, or basically water from a bottled water source. So there you go. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not going to be that strong.
Okay. Now what we're doing is we're going to put the aroma hops in, and we're turning up the heat.
The music's going a little too loud out there, so we're going to have to turn it down.
Okay. So now, we're going to take off the lid.
So what the deal here, take the lid off. We're almost done with actually brewing the beer. So we're going to add another little bit of more hops to add aroma. And we'll let that go for about 2 to 3 minutes. Our yeast is doing great. That's taken care of. We'll wait for 2 to 3 minutes. We'll be back with you.
Okay, I took off the, what I did is I went ahead and took out the steel wool that I was going to use to drain it. It's already disinfected. What I did is I went ahead and I put it in a bag just to keep it away from exposure of the air, because it's, you know, there's bacteria in the air. And I put it in a little baggie so we can use it on our racking cane later. You don't want to leave the racking cane in there for 15 minutes because the racking cane is plastic and it'll melt. But you want to leave the steel wool in there for a while so it'll basically disinfect, and it has. It's fine. So in 2 or 3 minutes we'll be back with you, and we'll be ready to put it in the 5-gallon, or the rest, or the 3 gallons left. And the 3 gallons are pretty cold by now, as you can see. Can you see the 3 gallons now? Oh, cool. You know, and I want to remind you, as you're doing your homebrew, enjoy a homebrew. It's always the motto. All right.
Hang on.
Okay. Let's say, basically, we sterilize the cheesecloth so we can use it as a secondary filter when we're doing this. And we're
To take the wort, put it in the bucket to begin the fermentation. First thing we need to do is take our chilled distilled water out of our ice bath. So this is 3 gallons here. We'll put it into our fermentation bucket.
got it.
As we do that,
This is about the only time that you actually pour it into a bucket, because Bacteria kind of doesn't matter too much.
Remember, we need to have this ice cold because this will offset the temperature, and we need it between 75 degrees Fahrenheit and 65 degrees Fahrenheit before we put the yeast in, which will actually kick in the fermentation.
Okay.
Put that back, store. And I'll move over here.
And we've been boiling a cheesecloth just so it is basically bacteria free.
Be careful for the steam.
What we're going to use this for is as a second filter when we get. There's other ways of doing this, of course, but we're just going to use this way. We're going to put this in the end of our racking can and our hose when we siphon this out of here. When we siphon the wort into our primary fermentator.
All right, take the lid off our wort here.
Then we're going to bacteria free.
Put our steel wool, which actually works as a filter.
And what we're going to do is we're going to stir this up a little bit.
If you want to bring the camera over and look.
So all the contents and all the basically particles, like the hops and stuff, pellets, go to the middle. And we're going to basically filter from the side. So we basically make a rolled pearl here. Okay. Slow it down a little bit. Okay. Now there's thousands of ways of siphoning. The one I'm going to use is pretty easy, actually, to tell you the truth.
He just dropped the filter
In there. It's okay now. So all this sediment should be about in the middle, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a siphoning technique. It's pretty easy. Basically, I don't want to put my mouth on this because I have bacteria in my mouth. That would, cause the beer to have a sour flavor to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically fill this with water the best I can. Okay, to start a siphon. Those who've ever siphoned gas before kind of know this. If you have a pump, it works better. I don't have one. So, this is a cheap way of doing it, okay? I'm going to place this in the side, and then I'm going to start my siphon.
Here.
I'm going to start it through this cheesecloth. It's really cold water. And there it goes. Somewhat.
You want it in the water?
Yeah, it's fine in the water.
It's not going.
Come on, baby. There it goes. You gotta get the right angle.
Beautiful, isn't
Play
it?
with it for a while. You know.
If you want to get a picture of the bucket,
Okay.
it's a cloudy one.
Come and take a look at this. Okay. As Dave right here is going to go ahead and hold this siphon, I'm going to basically take my thermostat and put in some really hot water to, well, I'm going to wash it off. Put it in some hot water, disinfect it a little bit. This is really hot water. Basically disinfect any bacteria on it. Pretty much. I'm going to go ahead and keep temperature. This is a floating thermometer. Which basically gives us the temp, And it's easier. See how it bobs in here? It's so I don't put my fingers actually in there. I suggest one of these is the best thing. I mean, it probably costs $3-4. It's worth it. Completely worth it. The guy who made this is a genius. Okay? And oops. Little ways to go here. It's very hot. The tube is very warm. Remember, do not worry. Worrying causes bad homebrew. Time will pass.
Is it going to be hard to pick up on voice? Is that actually going? I don't think that's going.
It's not going in there?
Oh, nothing's dripping down. There we go. Oh. You lose the siphon.
Did I lose it?
I think you lost it.
Oh, hold on. It's coming.
Oh, maybe get over the hump. That's all we need is having a hard time getting over the hump.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to have a little bit of fun. This is the yeast. This is basically what the yeast looks like after it's activated, ready to go and all that. And just a second now, we're getting pretty low, so I'm going to try and get as much as we can because the wort is very important. We lost a lot of water earlier, so we're going to have to make up for that by adding a little bit more water. And what we went ahead and did is we put some water in the refrigerator, cool water, earlier to make up for the water that we lost.
Lift it up.
No, that's basically it.
Okay, we can get the rest of that. Bye.
Okay. Okay.
You go ahead and take that. I'll let the cheesecloth drain. Little bag.
And if you want, you can even use the rest that's in here. If you want to see what's in here, there's very little left. Very little. And basically, can you tilt that? Yeah, I can tilt that a little bit. There's very little left. You don't really need that. Use it if you want. Let that go ahead. And
Mostly
drain.
what is left in this cheesecloth is all malt and hops. It's very heavy. It's very thick. As you can see, hardly anything is draining out of it. So there's not much liquid actually left in there. So the cheesecloth did a very good job in filtering out the solid part of the brew process. That's good, dude.
It's like a tea bag. Okay. So there's your beer. Primary fermenter. Now we got to make sure the temperature is cool enough. It's about, ooh, that's pretty close. It's going to have to actually chill for a little bit longer. Oh.
Which we have the chilled water we can cool it down with.
And it is right now about 72. We're at a good, really good rate right now. And it's even dropping even further. So we're going to wait a little bit and see how far it goes down. Right now it's 70. Dropping really fast.
Might be too cold, huh?
It's fine. It's good. Good time is now to drink a homebrew. Because remember, drinking homebrew, it's good. Okay.
done.
Okay, right now you want to be very eerie about this because you're exposing it to air and it's cooling quite a bit. Where's the lid? I'll be right back.
So, as we're waiting, I have nothing to say.
What's the temperature?
After about 2 minutes of after the drain, we have about 82 degrees. After stirring it up, the temperature has equalized around 82.
Is 82 really?
It went down just now because I think I shook it down.
Okay.
As
Okay, we lost quite a bit when we were boiling the wort. So what we're going to do is we're going to make up for that just a little bit. So we're going to add some cold water that we've had in the fridge. And this will cool down the wort a little bit. Now I know we didn't lose all this much, but I'm probably just going to add maybe a quarter of it or something. Just so. That's good. And as you filter, if you're using a 2-step or a 3-step or process, primary, secondary, basically you're going to want to add a little bit of water as you filter each time because you're going to lose a little bit. So we just lost a tiny bit, maybe a quarter of a gallon, maybe an eighth of a gallon. I just added a little bit. Doesn't hurt. And the temp is about 80. To cool it down just a little bit more, so I'm going to create an ice bath here.
Good thing you drain the water, huh? Okay, after a little while, after having it on the ground, saying it was around 82 degrees, we decided to put it into an ice bath for about 5 minutes. And we've gotten it down to around 75 degrees. Before we put the yeast in, it should be around 75 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So now we have the yeast culture, and we're going to pitch that. Just going to pour it directly into our primary fermentation. There we go.
Okay. And now what you want to do is you want to give it as much oxygen as possible because yeast activates with oxygen. This is the only time that you actually need to expose it and stir it. Okay, basically you can just do it for, I don't know, just a little bit. Some people shake it, other people just go ahead and stir it up a little bit. Make sure a lot of oxygen gets in there. Okay. That's good. You could do the 10 bottles of beer on the wall song, but, you know, right now I think that'll justify everything. And now what you want to do is put on your lid, your airtight lid. And your air seal lock, which basically will let out the carbon dioxide and everything when it starts to ferment. Make sure it has water in it. And you'll start to notice when it ferments, when this, there's a little, you probably can't see it, but there's a little capsule in here that's down at the bottom right now. When it starts to ferment, it'll release a carbon dioxide gas, and it'll cause this, well, which will rise a little bit, and it'll cause this to raise and there's holes in the top of this will allow it to release. And at that time, then you can notice that bubbles will come up and it'll start to let air out. So at that time,
and of course we've got the stopper here. We don't want any outside air to contaminate the brewing beer or the fermenting beer.
And it should take about anywhere from a day to 5 days before you'll start to see it ferment, depending on your yeast.
So, thank you for watching this segment of our brewing.
And
Next time you see us, it'll be our fermentation, and this part of the process will be finished.
And we'll transfer this part into our second fermenter. Further, thank you. See you later.